And as if you weren't acutely aware of this already, the cost of living increased in April. Yes, shocking. This according to the latest read on consumer prices. Higher food and especially higher energy costs, the diabolical culprits. Joel Naroff, president of Naroff Economic Advisors, joins us right now to explain how this is hampering our economic recovery. What's going on here, Joel?
Well, what we're seeing is that consumer costs are just rising an awful lot faster than incomes are. Another report came out today talking about real income, which adjusts what we make according to inflation, and those are going down. So people have less spendable income, and as a result of that, they're really not able to purchase as much as they had been. That's the problem with inflation. The core may be less than anybody is worried about, but at the same time, when we look at it, we buy food and energy, and we can't buy as many goods because the increases in food and energy are taking it away from purchasing other goods.
Yeah, Joel, we did see a significant breakdown in oil prices and commodities this week. That said, it's certainly been volatile, but is there any chance that we've seen the top period of prices, or do you forecast prices continue rising from here?
Well, I think the top line number, which includes food and energy, is probably going to ease back once we start seeing those gasoline prices come down. And that's really good. But the issue I have and the question I have is, are we really measuring the true costs of living to consumers? And you take the issue of owner's costs. There's a strange thing in the report that is called owner's equivalent rent. It's basically flat, and only because we're seeing housing prices being soft. But if you own a home, those costs are not flat, they're going up. So we're measuring inflation, but are we measuring the right thing? And that's the question right now.
Well, certainly Ben Bernanke and the Fed is measuring inflation in one way, differing from the way you're describing it. What can they do? What will they do, or will they do nothing? Will they continue to sit on their hands and say, we don't have inflation?
Well, that's exactly what they're going to do. Mr. Bernanke takes out food and energy costs from it, and they do that because that's the best way to predict future inflation. And those costs are just not rising very rapidly. They're rising faster than they had been, and by the end of this year, they could be rising at a pace that could cause some concern at the Fed. But at least for the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 months, I think the Fed's going to have the room not to be forced to raise rates because the core inflation, the ex-food and energy inflation, is not really surging. That's the best thing. That's the good thing for the Fed, and that'll keep rates low.
All right, though, when the QE2 and the money printing program here wraps up, do you think it's going to be a jolt to the markets? What happens in those weeks after we see the end of this, when the Fed stops easing?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a jolt to the market, if only because I think everybody assumes that at the end of June, QE2 will be over with. Consequently, there's not a whole lot of uncertainty of what the Fed's going to be doing, at least on the quantitative easing portion of their policy. I think what people are then going to start asking is, okay, when do they start to drop the words they're going to keep rates low for an extended period? Then they start worrying about rates rising. So I don't think QE2 ending is going to make much of a difference, but it will start the focus on the tightening policy.
Joel Naroff, always nice chatting with you. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Centers nearby, and upon checking out, the gal asked me what I was doing with so much food, and I said, there's an economic collapse coming to this country. Plan now. And she laughed. She actually thought that was funny. Here's the point. There are people out there that we can't help and don't want to help themselves. But as for the rest of us, buy storable food now. It remains cheap at this very moment in time, despite the meteoric rise in price of wheat, up 54% since June. Sugar's up 114%, and corn is up 79%, along with most other commodities, including silver. Buy food now for storage. This instant. Go tonight, tomorrow. Buy food in any amount you are able to buy it. Just as silver was cheap 1 year ago at $14.32 an ounce, food is cheap today compared to what it will cost 1 year hence, and perhaps...
Do you have any food reserves in your home right now? How long could you provide food for your family if the food supply was cut off? A month? A week? 3 days? Wouldn't you feel better if you had the necessary reserves? Have you ever noticed that the more advanced we get, the less prepared we are? Many things that defined life only 100 years ago are so convenient today that we don't really think about what would happen if that convenience were gone. Consider how we get our food. We just go down to the grocery store and grab a few things. But what if something happened that interrupted the food supply to the store? How long would it take for the shelves to be wiped out? What would you do? How long could you and your family survive? You know, for all the other important things in our lives, we have a variety of professionals, from mechanics to doctors, to help cover our bases. Why don't we also have a food professional? Food is our greatest dependency. Yet most of us find ourselves unprepared for the uncertainties that lie ahead. Why take chances? Why not do something about it? You've already taken the first step. Keep moving forward with this tour, and we can help you put a plan together and even show you how to get your food for free.